Coogs house. The Bayou Bucket is on this weekend, but what kind of rice is it going to be filled with?
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, and whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. If you should make it your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Cougs, if you want to join the conversation but I don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below how you eat your rice. You're a paella person, fried rice person, maybe a little jambalaya on top. Talk to me in the comments. How do you eat your rice? What's your favorite rice dish? Today's show is brought to you by Ultimate College Football Head Coach. More on that game later, but it's getting me back into video games a little bit, so I want to make sure to tell you about that one later. But we want to talk all about the rice matchup. I do want to sit on some ideas about what this particular iteration of the rice matchup could mean. I want to talk some about like where the game could get won. I want to open up with this game being a very interesting battle between two different styles of fights. Houston comes in with a strong defense. Frankly, we saw stopping the go-go offense, holding it to just 20 offensive points. We also saw it hold Oklahoma to 2 early touchdowns, one of which was on a sudden change special teams play inside the 10-yard line, right? Rice comes into this game with a really strong offense, averaging 403 yards and 41.5 points per game. But they also gave up over 30 points and lost to Sam Houston, right? So they kind of have a little bit of an inverse track to get here. I guess Rice does have a win over Texas Southern, but both have had impressive half of the football teams and have had some questions about the other. I want to talk some about how the styles of this fight could match up. Houston's strong defense versus Rice's strong offense, and that's going to come down to starting Rice quarterback E.J. Warner. If that name sounds familiar, it's because it is. The son of Kurt Warner was the American Athletic Conference Rookie of the Year at Temple a couple years ago, and Houston got in a way too close matchup up there in Pennsylvania. You remember him at Temple? It was a crazy close game for no reason. He had a bajillion yards. I think the actual stat line was 486 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 different 100-yard receivers, 3 different touchdown catchers, and ultimately, freshman Matthew Golden at the time caught a bomb from Clayton Tune to win the game with about 40 seconds left. It was kind of crazy because it was a game that should not have ever been that close from a talent perspective. Different coaching staff. Anyway, Houston pulled that one out. It's the same kid. He transferred to Rice this year for a shot at, frankly, a little bit, I think, better program. Temple's kind of on the downs. Rice is kind of on the ups. I want to remind people that he did have a couple fumbles in that Rice game, in the Temple game that Houston played a couple years ago, but Temple held on to the ball. This year he's had a couple turnover problems as well, including kind of like floated across the field out route. And by that I mean he's on the left hash, throwing the right sideline on a speed out, and the ball just kind of floats in the air, and Sam picks it off. Sam Houston State picks it off for a pick 6. He still gambles like that some, but really, really impressive arm talent. And frankly, as was the case a few years ago, he is impressive at sitting in the pocket with his eyes downfield and just taking whatever hits come. I think Houston's going to have to really get after him with their front four this week. I really 3.5 because the way that dog position plays. I will say that in watching their offensive line, they're big. I'm not going to act like don't have any advantage or anything, but I do think schematically you'll find ways to get Keith Cooper free. Carlos Allen should be fine. Looking for an A.J. Holmes game after the way the year started so far, getting his name involved a little bit more. I think this is the kind of game where we could see Houston's athleticism play a key role in those front four guys. And Rice is big. They've got transfer offensive linemen in from Harvard and Georgia. A year ago, they got a kid from Nebraska. I'm talking 320s, 6'6s, big people. They don't move as well. And I think that's going to be Houston's big advantage. I think if Houston can get that kind of advantage on the quarterback position, really rush the passer, get after it without breaking a bunch of rules, right? Generally speaking, if a defensive lineman breaks a rule, they got to, quote, be right, right? That means if you're going to go in the wrong gap, you got to get a sack, or else the whole defense is uh, in jeopardy, right? They can stay in line, stay in rule, and get at the quarterback. I think they'll have a pretty good day defensively, but I would trust a good day defensively against this Rice team could still mean a few touchdowns, right? That's just a strong offense. We saw it against UNLV, right? They prefer, it looks like to me, to pass the ball numerically speaking. I watched the Sam Houston game. I did not watch all of the Texas Southern game. They blew Texas Southern out, and I don't know that that's fair. Dean Connors looked like to me like their best back. He has the most carries and yards thus far as well. 4 rushing touchdowns on the year already. He's really good at getting vertical downhill. I thought he was best in the run game when Rice got into more of their power play stuff. So for folks at home that don't know a lot about run game football, what that means is a gap scheme with your play sides are blocking down or towards the center. And then you have a skip puller, a guy that comes around pulling, facing straight downfield. And theoretically, it's an insert play, and you get vertical really fast. And it typically hits like A gap to fall out. So we coach kids to hit the A gap and then go hash number sidelines as your angle, right? And it kind of fades out that way. I think that on the whole, Dean Connors is the best back they got because he's the best at that, and I think that that's what Rice wants to do the most. Um, Tajee Atkins is a freshman, a little bit different style of back. He's 5'7", listed a $175. You told me he's a $170. I believe you. You told me he's a $165. I believe you. He's got a little more shiftiness to him. He might want to do more of the tackling kind of stuff. But I don't know that Rice wants to do that, and so I think that's why Dean Connor gets a lot more up play here. Honestly, that's all of the running backs of note and consequence that they've got. EJ Warner's got a couple sacks, so he's got some rushes listed. But it's pretty thin pickings after that, and that's for a fairly explosive offense. The real deal here is they've got a lot of guys that can catch the football. Through 2 games, they've already had. Let me make sure I got my count here correct. 4 guys with a touchdown catch. It's pretty strong, I would say, given their disappointing play against Sam early. And I think that's we saw this offense a year ago. It doesn't have Luke McCaffrey, like I said, the last few years. That could put a thorn in Houston's side like he had the last few years. But I do think this is a program, as hard as this is to say, kind of on the up and up relative to moving into the American Conference and kind of moving up in the Group of 5 world and using resources they've got and those kinds of things. And what that's led to is bluntly a interesting transfer portal market. I mentioned they have offensive line transfers from Harvard and Georgia, a kid from Nebraska. The quarterback EJ Warner is from Temple. What that's led to is because of the niche, right? A high-end academic school. They're kind of a transfer destination in a lot of ways. It's a high-end academic school in a Group of 5 conference, and for what it's worth, that seems to be serving them pretty well in modern college football. That's not to say that those kids couldn't go play at any other Group of 5 school, but a lot of times those kids are looking at it not from a what gets me to the league perspective, but you get kids that have already played at Harvard or spent a few years at Georgia, and like, well, what am I going to finish my degree in? Because I'm going to look at life after football a little bit differently, and that has helped them a lot. I don't think that makes them juggernauts. I think the truth is the other side of the football may become more important because when you have like our A game and your A game on one side, well, the other side could be the deciding factor if those two stalemate, right? And so I want to talk about what that's going to look like a little bit in a second. But first, if you're looking to like get into coaching your own football, we got a game for you. It's called Ultimate College Football HC. I think you're gonna love this game. I love this game a lot. I used to be really into like the old NCAA football games. I'm really into this now. It's an amazing game with simulations. You can step in the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of the Cougs? From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you get to control every detail of your program. It's all in your hands if you can handle the pressure. Here's what I really love about this game. I'm an offensive guy, Houston Board teacher and coach, as I always open with. Um, you get to, in this game, call the plays for your offense. You can help determine both the success of your football season and the program as a whole. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free, no ads, 100% playable offline, and you can play on the go. You can play as you want, whenever you want to. And of course, with a special offer, if you go enter code for Locked On Coogs fans, it'll be Locked On CFB in all caps. Inside the game store, receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it'll get your team off to a strong start. Down the game by going to ultimate-cfb.com or look it up in the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. All right, we've also got this big urge to make sure we get people to the Houston and Rice game. Right, we want to fill the stadium. We want everyone to be wearing red. That's really important. Place to get tickets to do that is Game Time. Game Time is the lowest price guarantee. It's the best app to get tickets to anything you want: concerts, comedy shows, sports, theater, whatever you're doing. If it needs a ticket, the place to get it is at Game Time. I like that I can look at things like what my view will be at that venue from that section and row for that type of an event, right? Any instructions, things like that can be not a surprise. I know exactly what I'm looking for and where I'm looking from. If you find seats in that section and row for less somewhere else, Game Time will refund you via credit 110% of the difference. That's big time. It's the lowest price guarantee, and they offer on everything that you are doing. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Turn to play again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Lap its lowest prices guaranteed. All right, so we talked about these two teams both being one offensive, one defensive, and what that matchup could look like. But when that stalemates, the other side of the field is going to be really important. Houston's offense versus Rice's defense. And frankly, Rice's defense has been a little lackluster, right? They're giving up over 20 points per game right now. And admittedly, it's only been a couple games, but they've also played Sam and Texas Southern. This is not like a crazy murderer's row of a schedule or anything like that. On the whole, their defense is giving up 108 yards on the ground per game and 140 yards through the air per game. Actually, that actually favors what Houston wants to do. We know with Barbay, we talked about it. We saw a little bit of it in Oklahoma, certainly more of an Oklahoma than we did against UNLV. This idea of favoring the run game, right? Favoring the run game to set up other things. I think this is a great game to kind of get right with that. Again, that seems to be relative to the rest of the country where Rice is the weaker spot on their defense. They did give 34 points to Sam Houston. For what it's worth, I know teams change a lot year to year in college football now, but Sam Houston had only one game of more than 34 points a year ago. They got 34 opening weekend against Rice this year, right? I frankly would frequently argue that defense is having upper hand in the other part of the season too, for what it's worth, but I digress. They're on a 3-4, but that fourth guy is more of a hybrid. So sometimes it looks like a 4-3, sometimes it looks like a true 3-4. They truly get away with this, though, because they have two gigantic defensive tackles. Nose tackle, 6'3", 330. Defensive tackle plays a lot in A and B gaps, is listed at 6'2", 305. Those dudes are hard to move just on physics alone. And I don't say that like Houston hasn't dealt with big guys before. These are not as talented a guys as Oklahoma had last week, but they're big. And frankly, I'm being really honest, they don't go as deep with the 315 plus guys, but they've got a couple guys that are heavier on the scale, right? And so I think that is going to be an interesting thing to see what Houston does up front, how they handle those guys interior. The truth is that Rice's defensive line found success in confusing offensive tackles. Knife inside here, blitz outside there, those kinds of things that kind of get them twisted or backwards, open up gaps to blitz the quarterback. My concern there would be that I would argue Houston's better offensive line with their interior guys, and their guys that need more work, we'll say, are their exterior guys, the tackles. So we'll kind of see how that shakes out. But I do think that the thing that Sam Houston showed that made me feel like Houston's going to have a big advantage in this game is both the running of the football part, but they also, when they had time to throw, had a great amount of success with play action and deeper developing stuff. And as good as Sam Houston may be for the division football they're playing, and they've got the historic program from the FCS days, Willie Fritz had a big hand in that. Houston's receivers are just flat better than theirs. So if Houston can hold up, if Houston can give Donovan time, guys should be open behind the defense a lot, right? I'm talking a bad play action fake is getting guys a solid 2.5 step lead on bad corners, right? I think if Houston can give Donovan time to throw, or whoever take the snap at that point, time to throw, that could be a big, big deal, right? The other thing I think is interesting is that it looked like to me, well, the defensive end and defensive line's a strength of this Rice defense. If you can get outside of them, there's lots of room to run. You saw Sam Houston have success with reverses. We've seen Houston try reverses. You saw Sam Houston have success by scooping the end with the H-back. We've seen Houston do that with tight ends and stuff like that. We saw Sam Houston get around them with the lead blocker on split zone, where the split zone guy comes across and then loops to the outside to get the outside shoulder of the defensive end. Houston has done very similar things too. In a similar kind of vein, we've seen the same split zone look turn into a little pass to the tight end in the flat, or a pass to the H, or a pass to the Y in the flat, or whoever. Boogie's caught that pass. Rashawn's got that pass. Malik's caught that pass. Jaden's caught that pass. I think Joseph Manjak's caught that pass. I think Marquise Shoulders caught that pass. Those little flat route stuff. Sam Houston had a lot of success with that as well. I think that Sam Houston, and this is not just me beating the same drum I've been beating. This is me watching film and being like, okay, I think Houston can do these same things. Sam Houston had a lot of success because their quarterback also ran the ball. And they ran some dialed up, drawn up quarterback runs for him too, right? And Houston's answer, if they don't want to do that with Donovan, shoulder injury or not trusting his legs like he used to or whatever, I worry that if they put Zion in the game and let him go with that, it's going to be obvious he's in there to run. So you might need to let him throw a couple passes to keep them honest. But really, Sam Houston had a lot of success with quarterback power run game kind of stuff, and that's really up Donovan's wheelhouse, up his alley, in his wheelhouse. And I think that if they use that like they should, not just because I've been saying it, but because Sam Houston had success with it, then I think that could be a big day for him as well. I'm really looking for this to be a get-right game for the offense for Houston. We'll talk this week with a couple different guys. We got at least one booked, and then we'll talk some more about what's going on Friday when we get there. Some potential news on Thursday could throw things that, who knows. And, well, we're working on stuff for Thursday, so we'll see if it comes there. But also you got this idea that Houston only has 2 offensive touchdowns thus far. Only one of them came from the first team. And frankly, it came on kind of I don't want to say a trick play, but definitely a setup play that got Manjack really open. Needs to be something more consistent. I mentioned the opening of the week. If you're going to hang your hat on something, what is it? Is it going to be these quick passes? Well, I think Rice is a team you can get real game reps in and getting good at that. And those are valuable and important. And I really, really want to see Houston get into those things frequently and kind of use this with Brett Yormark in the stands. I'm talking about the stakes of this game in a second. But I really want to see them use this as a chance to fix those things before they get into conference play. Now, I want to talk about those stakes, including Brett Yormark in the stands of this game in a second. But first, the line of this game is at 4.5 points on FanDuel. Houston is a favorite once again, and that's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. It's a good partner to have. It's good buddies to have over there at FanDuel. Locked On loves them. But right now, they got something different for you. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get 3 weeks free of NFL Sunday Ticket and a trial from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with YouTube TV as a base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season afternoon out-of-market game, and all you need is a Google account, a current form of payment that you can then cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Put that $5 down, get the 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so what's at stake for Houston this weekend, I think, is more than just a trophy rivalry game, although I should open with, I think a trophy rivalry game is high stakes in and of itself, right? Those trophies matter to those programs and to those fan bases, even if it spends a lot of its time at one place or the other. For example, Houston has won 33 of the 45 matchups between Houston and Rice. That means most of the time the Bayou Bucket has been in our part of Houston, in the third ward, right? But that means that Rice spent that whole time wanting the bucket. And frankly, that means every time Rice gets the bucket, like they presently have, it's a big deal Houston to get it back. If it's split 50-50, it's still a coin flip who gets it this year, et cetera. These rivalry game trophies are the kinds of things that coaches really do build up in a way that I'm sure Fritz is doing a great job of it too. But it's a culture. It's a part of what happens at Houston. You play Rice, you beat Rice. It's part of the goal, right? There's a big brother, little brother aspect to it, right? And so I think that trophy symbolizes a lot of those things. And I don't think it's just some simple bucket on top of one platform, right? Like I think there's a real importance to what's going on here. That's not the only set of stakes, though. It's a unique year. It's the opening of the Willie Fritz era. Houston, frankly, as good as we feel about the team after the improvements from week 1 to week 2, Houston is still winless, right? And Houston's looking for that win. And bluntly, this is the best shot on the rest of the schedule, right? It just is. I think Houston wins a few games. I'm not saying that they won't. And y'all know me, I'm talking myself into a win by every Friday. But this is the best chance for a win on the schedule, right? So you got to go get this one. The Rice game a year ago was not, I guess, technically Dana Holgerson's final straw when Houston lost to Rice in a fairly ugly game where they just did not look ready to play. And, I think I said at the time, looked, unprepared and preparing as a coach's job. I think I said that at the time. After the fact, after the game was over, it was ugly, right? And frankly, once Houston kind of woke up, they ran off a bunch of points, went to overtime. Had they just woken up ready to play at the start, they'd been fine. It was not Holgerson's final straw, but I think we'd be being silly if we act like it didn't play any role, right? I mean, it definitely played a role. And while his final straw may have been his comments on recruiting later, I don't think Dr. Couture or Chris Pesman had any love lost for a guy that had trouble beating Rice and his third time playing them, especially when he inherited a program that in 2021 beat the doors off of Rice, and then 2022 struggled to beat Rice at home. They won that game. Big Caesar fumble recovery at the end of it, right? But at the end of the day, that was a really close game. And then they lost the next year. I had trouble finding McCaffrey all over the field, it felt like. And I'm not saying that winning this game in a big way wouldn't mean that everything is good. It's still a long rebuild. We're still early into it. But it would certainly signify a change. Something different on the field. Being ready to play at the start would be different than the last administration. Burn play throughout would be different than the last administration. And beating the team you're supposed to beat like you're supposed to beat them would be a welcomed change. And I think that's why I put a lot on this game. I don't think it's any accident Brett Yormark is coming to Houston to watch this, right? If I'm being really honest, I think Yormark is a big friend of, or a big fan of Willie's. I think he sees this as the best chance Willie has to get a win on the schedule. And I'd imagine Yormark wants to be there to congratulate him. If I'm being completely frank and honest, over this is not reporting. I don't know anyone in Brett's camp. I don't know anyone super well in Willie's side and the Houston side of the whole thing, right? I don't mean to say I've got some insider information, but why else, with other games, some between Big 12 teams happening across college football on Saturday, would you pick this one? It's a rivalry game. It's a chance for Willie to get a win. And I think that means it's also a chance for Houston to show off, not just on the football field. Though I would love for Houston to show off and score 40 points on the football field. That'd be great. That'd be fantastic. That'd make for a lot more fun post-game show, if I'm being really honest. Um, I I do think, though, it's a chance for the University of Houston to show off. Um, Tailgating can be turned up. Ed Nunez is there. This could be the first football win while he's in charge as well, right? Um, this could be a chance to fill the stadium and fill the student section. And I think they're talking about 6,000, 7,000 tickets and all that. Fill it up. Fill it up and really go crazy. And I think this is the chance to do that because it is a crosstown rival. It is a school we like to beat. It's also a chance to win a football game. And it's also, a chance to kind of see the continued growth. If they get as much better between weeks 2 and 3 as it did between weeks 1 and 2, I don't know that this game is ever close, right? The leaps and bounds this team took between weeks 1 and 2 were unreal. If they can do the same thing between 2 and 3, whoo, buddy, right? And I think that's what we're looking forward to here now. Thursday, because we got a guest talk about comparing Rice East a little bit more. Someone who follows Rice a little bit closer than I. Friday's up in the air because some of the stuff on Thursday is also up in the air. But we're going to be here each and every day. So subscribe, hit the bell so you know we're live. Locked on Coogs is primarily Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Coogs.